How did a people without wheels, without written language, transport 40-ton stones across hundreds of miles of unforgiving terrain? Who were these ancient engineers who accomplished a feat that would challenge us even today? And the biggest question of all, why? Why pour centuries of effort into this single spot on Salisbury Plain? Was it a temple to forgotten gods? A hallowed graveyard for kings? A giant astronomical clock built to decode the heavens? Or something else entirely? For centuries, the truth has been locked away in these stones, sparking tales of wizards, giants, and aliens. But today, thanks to incredible archaeological discoveries and new technology, we are closer than ever to the answer. It all starts around 5,000 years ago, in 3000 BC. But there are no stones yet. The first Stonehenge was a massive circular earthwork, or a henge. Using nothing but deer antlers as pickaxes and the shoulder blades of oxen as shovels, ancient Britons dug a huge circular ditch and bank. Inside the bank, they dug 56 mysterious pits, known today as the Aubrey Holes. For a long time, we didn't know what they were for, but recent analysis of the human remains found inside them has revealed a stunning truth. This first Stonehenge was a cemetery. Not just any cemetery, but the largest Neolithic burial ground in all of Britain, holding the cremated remains of up to 200 people, men, women, and children. And these weren't local villagers. Isotopic analysis of their bones shows they came from all over the country, from the highlands of Scotland to the coast of Wales. Stonehenge was a national cemetery, a final hallowed resting place for the elite. Then, about 500 years later, around 2500 BC, things get heavy. This is when the stones arrive and the Stonehenge we recognize today begins to take shape. And they used two very different kinds of stone, each chosen for a specific, powerful reason. First, the blue stones. These smaller stones, and I say smaller, but they still weigh up to 4 tons each, are geological outsiders. They were quarried in the Preseli Hills in Wales, over 150 miles away. We'll get to how they moved them in a minute, but the why is fascinating. These stones were special. Many have unique acoustic properties. When you strike them, they ring out with a metallic bell-like tone. In a world without metal, these singing stones must have seemed utterly magical, imbued with spirit and power. But the main event was the Sarsens. These are the giants, the iconic outer circle and the inner horseshoe of 5 massive trilithons. That's 2 upright stones with one across the top. The average Sarsen weighs 25 tons. The biggest ones top 40 tons, the weight of 6 bull elephants. These were sourced from Marlborough Downs, about 20 miles away. This is when Stonehenge was transformed from an earthy burial ground into a breathtaking cathedral of stone, designed to dominate the landscape and inspire awe. For the next 1,000 years, the stones were rearranged and added to. The magical blue stones were moved into different patterns inside the Sarsen Circle, and a grand avenue was built, connecting Stonehenge to the nearby River Avon. By around 1600 BC, the work finally stopped, and Stonehenge stood complete, ready to mystify the world for the next 3.5 millennia. Okay, so the timeline is staggering, but the how is even more mind-boggling. How did Neolithic people with a primitive toolkit become master builders on this epic scale? Let's start with the transport. Moving the 4-ton bluestones 150 miles from Wales was a Herculean task. Archaeologists believe they were likely dragged on wooden sledges over land, then loaded onto massive rafts to navigate the Bristol Channel and the rivers, before being hauled overland again to the site. It was an incredibly complex, multi-stage amphibious operation. But the 40-ton Sarsens were a different challenge. This was all brute force, organization, and willpower. Hundreds, if not thousands, of people would have been needed. They likely put the stones on giant wooden sledges and laid a track of rolling logs in front of them, greased with animal fat. Inch by painful inch, day after day, they dragged them 20 miles across the rolling, unforgiving hills of Wiltshire. And once the stones were on site, the engineering became even more brilliant. This isn't just a pile of rocks. It's a masterpiece of prehistoric architecture. They dug massive holes for the upright stones, with one sloping side. They would slide the base of the stone into the hole, then use armies of people pulling on ropes from the other side, with timber A-frames as levers, to haul the massive pillar into a perfectly vertical position. To get the cross stones or lintels on top, they likely built enormous timber platforms or used a ramp of earth and rock, slowly raising the lintel bit by bit. But here's the most amazing part. The stones are locked together with sophisticated woodworking joints translated into stone. They carved protruding knobs, called tenons, on top of the uprights, and hollowed out holes, called mortises, in the lintels, so they fit together like a giant Lego set, locking them in place against the forces of time. The lintels of the outer circle were even joined together with tongue and groove joints to create a smooth, stable, and continuous ring. This was precision engineering, designed to last forever. They even took into account optical illusions. The uprights are slightly wider at the top, so when you look up at them from the ground, they counteract perspective and appear perfectly straight. This wasn't primitive. This was genius. So they spent centuries building an engineering marvel. But for what purpose? This is the ultimate mystery, and there isn't one answer, but several compelling theories that likely all hold a piece of the truth. The theory is that these two sites were connected. Durrington Walls, built of wood that rots and decays, was the land of the living. Stonehenge, built of stone that endures forever, was the land of the dead. The river Avon connected the two, and ancient people would have held ceremonial processions, moving from the wooden, temporary world of the living to the stone, eternal world of the ancestors, to commune with them. On the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the rising sun appears directly over the heelstone, sending a ray of light straight into the heart of the circle. On the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, the sun sets in the exact opposite direction through the great central trilithon. This was more than just a pretty light show. For a farming society, knowing when the seasons were turning was a matter of life and death. It told them when to plant, when to harvest, and when to prepare for winter. Stonehenge was their clock, their calendar, and their observatory, connecting them to the cosmos and giving them power over their world. Skeletons found buried at Stonehenge show signs of serious illness and injury. People made pilgrimages here from all over Britain and even mainland Europe, hoping to be cured by the magical power of the stones. They would even chip off small pieces of the blue stones to take with them as protective amulets. Stonehenge was a prehistoric Lourdes, a hospital for the soul where the sick and the dying came in search of a miracle.